Alright, I am back with another Destiny 2 video in my best Cathalion costume because I slept in my contacts and that did not feel great. So here I am, sorry for the light reflection, which is something I'm just learning about from my glasses, but not going to do this very often. Today I wanted to talk about something that got brought up in my Q&A session yesterday where someone asked me what's kind of one system I'd like to see overhauled in the Witch Queen. And what I thought of was power and the current power system in the game, which I talked about for about a minute or so. But I kind of wanted to go more in depth to that because like the longer I've thought about this, like the less I understand kind of what the point of power is in the current state of the game pretty much at all. The game has kind of reached a point where it is genuinely hard to think of like power coming up in certain circumstances in terms of how it affects your gameplay for most activities. And this has kind of been amplified by Bungie's decision this season to essentially do away with the entire 50 tier power grind and change it just to 10, just to the pinnacle grind. So it's just a slower process to get those extra 10 points of power, which kind of makes the artifact the primary source of power because you can easily get to plus 10 on the artifacts, and most people are probably going to get between 15 and 20 if you're playing all season. So that's like double what you get from the pinnacle gear grind alone. I'm at like, I don't know, 13, 30 something at this point. Like I haven't really been specifically going for pinnacles or power. You can get a lot higher if you're like a bounty goblin and are just grinding those like crazy. But the point is like there's not really a reason to do this. And I went through and I wrote down all the power requirements for activities in the current state of the game. And it's kind of wild, just like how much power doesn't matter for pretty much everything except maybe like one thing. So for Nightfalls, we have Adepts at 1240. Keep in mind that like 1300 this season is like essentially the baseline. Like any gear will get you up to 1300 with pretty much no effort. Because that was the kind of the normal cap of last season, and so now the new pinnacle cap is 1310. So Adepts are 1240, Heroics are 1280, Legends are 1310, Masters are 1340, and GMs are 1360, where you need to be a minimum of 1335 to start them, but getting over that does not help you because there's like a contest modifier in order to preserve kind of the sanctity of GMs and their hardness, so you can't just like bounty grind your way to like 1360 power, which is theoretically possible, I guess, I think. And you kind of like still need a challenge no matter what. Expunge, Override, and Bolt of Glass are all just 1300, so that's just base power, and like the more you get above that, like yeah, the more damage you'll do, but you're never underpowered really for any of these unless you were like way behind in overall Destiny content. And then if you want to go back into like Deepstone Crypt, that is I think 12. Yeah, it's 1220. So I mean, power is not a factor there at all. And this also plays into how PvP works right now, where there are two PvP modes that kind of factor in your power level: Trials of Osiris and Iron Banner. The problem is they don't use artifact power. So you can't get an advantage there by grinding out the artifact, and you are limited now to this 10 pinnacle gap. And like this could have been a meaningful gap, like last season when the power grind was 50 levels, but with 10 levels, I mean, it is very, very. You run into circumstances like almost never where that will actually make the difference between like life and death, and the power factor doesn't really come into play. Like every so often, you might be at such a disparity where like your one shot, super melee doesn't fully kill someone, but like that rarely happens, and it's just not really a part of the grind anymore, even though it was, these are kind of supposed to be pinnacle PvP activities where power matters, and that was kind of a big push that everyone wanted. Now power doesn't really matter at all, and we have one thing still to come, which is hard mode or master mode for Vault of Glass. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. It is possible that like maybe they set, maybe it's like Master Nightfalls. Maybe it's 1340. Maybe there is no like floor and contest mode modifier. So you can grind your way up higher, and that is a reason to grind power. That is not confirmed yet, though, and I can easily see a situation where it is essentially just another form of contest modifier, like the raid launches with, in order to preserve challenge for the raid and not allow people to overlevel and one phase bosses if they have just, grinded out a couple extra 100 levels of the season pass. I think Bungie is kind of trying to avoid that, and they don't want people to motivate people to do that because that's not exactly a fun way to go about things. And I think people have been more receptive to the challenge of the contest modifier system, both in raid day launches and in GMs. So it is hard for me to imagine them not doing this. So looking through all of these, what does power matter for? The only thing I can come up with this season that power actually matters for, other than hitting the base minimum to get into GMs, is maybe more efficiently grinding Legend and Master Nightfalls. You can really speed through them if you are over leveling for Legends, and then you can have a much easier time if you are close to on level for Masters. I don't know if the reward difference between Master and Legend is all that much different to the point where it's worth it, when Masters have the potential to go slower depending on how you're running them, and you might as well just speed farm Legends. But besides that, I genuinely cannot think of another activity where power actually matters to a significant degree, kind of once you get a certain level over the base of 1300. And if you were doing anything at all, you are probably going to get close to 1320 pretty quickly and be 20 power over for all the seasonal activities and the raid. So I almost wonder what the point is of this system at all. And if we're talking about Witch Queen reworks, what they do with expansions is usually they knock up the power level by 150 or 200. But that creates this really weird kind of dumb process where the first 100, 150 levels of that are you just kind of swapping out all of your gear with every single drop, even blues, because everything is a power upgrade. And people there used to be in the past, there was a race to get through that to the point where you would be, a high level for the raid or high enough level for the raid where you're not just getting totally owned. I'm thinking Last Wish, that was kind of a big factor in Last Wish because there was no contest modifier, and it was all about, that race was pretty much entirely about people were just dramatically under-leveled for the content, which is why only 2 teams actually cleared it. And I think Bungie didn't want that, so they changed the system to contest, and it's much easier to hit the base minimum for contest now. And I don't really see the point of them doing that again with another giant jump with the power level. I just don't see what that does exactly. I have also said repeatedly that I do not find the artifact power system rewarding either. I do not like grinding for stuff that is not permanent. That could be loot. That was the whole thing with sunsetting. You're grinding for loot that's going to someday go away. But in the case of the artifact, it's literally the power itself is going away. So you're being tasked with grinding your power up to hit some sort of base minimum or more comfortably farm a Nightfall or something. And there's already very few things that even need that. And then you're just losing it at the end, and you have to do it again. And still, really, the only way that remains to do this is bounties and now seasonal challenges. And that's just not a terribly enjoyable system. Seasonal challenges are maybe better than bounties, but they're still fundamentally kind of just longer bounties. And I've never liked the artifact system. If the artifact system was giving me a reason to grind that far, I've talked about this before, but if I could grind my way to unlocking every single mod in the list instead of just 12, that would actually be a reason to do that. Even if that was temporary, that would really kind of make the season better if I had more access to more mods and grinding past, season rank 100 had an actual point to it. But now I've hit 130 just sort of by accident, and I don't remotely see a reason to keep grinding. I don't bother picking up most bounties now. I'm kind of not doing seasonal challenges anymore because I don't care about Bright Dust that much. I already have tens of thousands of Bright Dust I'm not really spending. So the whole system is sort of disconnected for me. So we've had a lot of leveling conversations in the past, oh, should there be slot leveling? Because I'm tired of infusing everything I do by 1 or 2 power every time I get a new thing. And I don't think the upgrade module system is very fun. But we're approaching a point where almost the game almost doesn't need power at all, which is weird to say, but we're at a level where they could easily just sort of pick difficulty levels and have sort of contest mode for everything. So like, okay, contest mode right now for GMs is plus 25. But they could just change it and be like, okay, for Legend, it's plus 10. And for Master, it's plus 15. And for Adept, it's minus 40 or whatever it is. And like that could just be the system and there wouldn't really be a power grind at all. Maybe that's bad because, it's kind of a fundamental part of these games, in this genre and the MMO genre and the loot shooter genre to have some sort of level grind and to increase your power that way. But the way the system currently operates, it's temporary power through the artifact that goes away. And then it is these little minuscule upgrades like plus 10 per season that mean almost nothing. But it wasn't really fun when it was plus 50 either every single season. And that kind of felt exhausting. So this is why I think it needs a rework. Like, I don't know if I have a specific answer for this. I don't know if just changing everything to some variant of contest modifier is the answer. Like, that almost seems more boring to me. And yet the current state of the game where like a bunch of stuff is exempt from the artifact power, in a contest mode exists for the true challenges of the game. And so you have this weird middle ground of like a couple activities where you really feel kind of any impact from power. And I don't think that's a good system. And I want to see this change in some capacity. I don't know exactly what form that will take. I don't know if it will happen. Maybe they have settled on this plus 10 thing with the artifact, and that's like what they like from now on. Witch Queen is a big kind of defining moment because we have always had this sort of giant jump in power. And last time this happened, one of the additional reasons it happened was because they're also sunsetting everything. So when they jumped all gear ahead to plus 100, 200 power, whatever it was, it had to leave all your gear behind, and that gear was no longer viable. But now that sunsetting doesn't exist, what's the point of that? Like, we're not leaving anything behind now because everything can be infused that hasn't already been sunset. So it doesn't even serve that purpose either. So it's just kind of like a tangled web of like, I don't understand what the purpose of power is in like 98% of the game right now. And that number is only shrinking. It used to be like, all right, maybe like half the stuff in the game needs power, half doesn't. And now, but like it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it's like, okay, power benefits you in Master Nightfall specifically, and not really that much else. Maybe I'm oversimplifying, but that is kind of the impression I'm getting. So I just think we need some sort of shakeup of the system, whether it's a complete overhaul or further refinement. I guess we'll see. But those are my thoughts on that for now, and we'll see what the coming week brings in Destiny. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.